passes. Now, what if this person is between 60 years of age and up, an elder? For the male, the valuation is 15 silver shekels, and for a female, it is 10 silver coins. Now, in verse 8, the Torah tells us, if the person is too poor for valuation, yes, he promised to give the money, but he doesn't have. So he comes to the temple, comes to the Kohen, and says, I promised to give the value of myself or someone else, and I don't have the money. What can I do? So the Kohen should evaluate him according to what the person making the vow can afford. Should the Kohen evaluate him? And we tell him, show us your resources, what you have, your savings, your possessions, and we will give to you whatever are essential utensils, whatever you need for your livelihood and for your comfort, and the rest we will sell so that you can pay for your commitment. Now, next we learn, what if a person sanctifies an animal to bring to Hashem? If it is, verse 9, if it is a kind of animal that one can bring as an offering to Hashem, which means it's a kosher animal that is brought as a korban, sheep, goat, or cow, whatever part of it he may give to Hashem shall be holy. Whether the whole animal becomes holy or a part of an animal. For example, if a person says, I want to give the leg of this animal to Hashem, so only the leg becomes holy. What do? We sell the animal and we take from the money the value of the leg, and with that value we buy something that can be used in Beit HaMikdash. For example, we can buy a little lamb, we can buy a bird, we can buy flour, wine, or oil, and that can be used on the altar. Verse 10 teaches us about the negative commandment not to exchange your commitment for something else. He shall not exchange it nor substitute it, whether good for bad or bad for good. But if he does substitute it, one animal for another animal, then both of them will be holy. For example, a person said, I'm going to give this cow to Beit HaMikdash. And then he looks at the cow and he feels bad. Why did I give away this cow? I could have used it myself. Maybe I should substitute it for a sheep. He goes and says, let this sheep be instead of the cow. It's a sin. And not only that, both the sheep and the cow remain holy. And now both of them have to be brought to Beit HaMikdash. Verse 11. What if an animal that was sanctified became blemished? Can't bring it as an offering anymore? What do? And if it is any disqualified animal from which they may not bring an offering to Hashem, then he shall stand the animal before the Kohen, and the Kohen shall evaluate whether good or bad. Like the Kohen's evaluation, so shall it be. The Kohen looks at the animal and says, this animal with the blemish costs so much. If you want, you can buy it, and that's the value of this animal that a person needs to pay in order to buy this animal from Beit HaMikdash. That is, if the animal was an offering that developed a blemish. Any Jew can buy it for the price, the market price of this animal now. However, if he redeems it, if the owner, the one that sanctified the animal, wants to buy it back from the temple after it became blemished, he must add a fifth to the valuation. And here the fifth is 25%, which is a quarter. you add it to other 4 quarters, you get 5 quarters. So if the original animal cost $100, he has to pay $125 in order to buy his own animal back from Beit HaMikdash if he wants to eat it. Now, in verse 14 on page 721, we learn about a person who wants to donate his house or the value of his house to Beit HaMikdash. If a man consecrates his house to be holy to Hashem, the Kohen shall evaluate it. Verse 15, and if one who sanctified it will redeem his house, he shall add 1/5 of the money valuation to it, and it shall be his. If anyone else buys the house from Beit HaMikdash, they pay market value. But a person who donated it, we charge him extra for changing his mind. So a person can commit to pay the value of a human being to Beit HaMikdash, value of an animal or the animal itself, and he can donate his house. Now in verse 16 we learn about donation of fields, of land. And there are 2 kinds of land. There's a land that the Jewish people received when they entered the land of Israel with Yoshua. That is called ancestral land. And then there is land that you buy from someone else. If a man consecrates a field from his ancestral heritage to Hashem, the valuation shall be according to its seeding. An area seeded by a homer of barley for 50 silver shekels. Which they make a calculation. If it's an area of 300,000 square feet, the value of it is 50 silver coins. And depending on the area of the field, you use this proportion to pay more or less. 50 silver shekels in an area where you can plant a homer, a special measure of barley. Again, it is 300,000 square feet. Verse 18. That is, if he consecrated the field at the beginning of the 50-year cycle, called Yovel. However, if he consecrates his field after the Jubilee year, sometime in the middle of the 50 years, the Kohen shall calculate the money for him according to the remaining years until the Jubilee year. Since he's only donating the field to the temple for 50 years, and then during Yovel, Jubilee, the field will go back to him, therefore we calculate how many years are left until Yovel, and it shall be subtracted from its valuation. And if one who consecrated the field will redeem it himself, he shall add 1/5 to the money valuation to it. But if he does not redeem the field, then it comes back to him during Yovel. However, if the temple treasurer already sold the field to another Jew, if he had sold the field to another man, it cannot be redeemed anymore. And a field that was donated to the temple and then sold at an auction to another Jew does not go back to its original owner during Yovel. So what happens to it when Yovel comes? Then when the field goes out in the Jubilee, it will be holy to Hashem. It shall become the Kohen's. It is divided by the Kohanim after Yom Kippur. Now, verse 22. What if it's a field that was bought by one Jew from another Jew? But if he will consecrate to Hashem a field that he acquired, that is not a field from his ancestral heritage. Since it's not his property, he cannot donate it fully to Beit HaMikdash, and therefore the Kohen shall calculate the value according to the area of the land, and if he wants, he can redeem it, or someone else can redeem it. However, verse 24, in the Jubilee year, the field shall return to the one from whom he acquired it. It will go to the original seller, the original owner, whose ancestral heritage of the land it was. Now, the Torah tells us what is a shekel. It's a sacred shekel that is used in Beit HaMikdash, and that shekel is 20 gerah, a smaller coin. 20 gerah makes 1 shekel. That's the shekel to be used in these valuations. Now we learn about animal that is firstborn male. However, verse 26, a firstborn that will become a firstling for Hashem among livestock, a man shall not consecrate it, whether it is of oxen or of the flock, it is Hashem's. Which means, unlike regular animals, you have a choice to consecrate them, to donate them to Beit HaMikdash, or to declare that they are going to be a korban, or you can keep them for yourself and eat them. A firstborn male animal born to sheep, goats, or cows becomes holy, becomes consecrated, becomes a korban automatically as soon as it is born. That's why it says you should not consecrate it, you should not make it a different korban. You can't take the firstborn and say, you know what, I want to bring it as olah. You can't bring it as olah because it's already holy as firstborn, as bechor. Now, verse 28. First, verse 27. What if the animal that you want to donate to the temple is not kosher animal? If among the unclean animals he shall redeem it according to the valuation and add a fifth to it. Which means if a person donates a horse or a camel to the Beit HaMikdash, it cannot be brought as a korban, so it will be evaluated and someone can redeem it, and if it's the owner, he adds a fifth. However, there is an exception. If it's a donkey, a firstborn donkey also has holiness. Regular donkey you can donate through this procedure, but the firstborn donkey you have to exchange for a baby sheep and give the sheep to the Kohen, and then you can do anything you want with the donkey. Now, verse 28, what's called cherem, segregated property that you say, I'm forbidden to use, I'm donating it to the temple or to the Kohanim. However, any segregated property that a man will segregate for the sake of Hashem, whether human being, animal, or the field, or of ancestral heritage, may not be sold and may not be redeemed. Any segregated item may be most holy to Hashem. Either if you say it's for temple, it goes to the Beit HaMikdash, or you say I want to donate it to Kohanim, then the Kohanim divide it among themselves. Verse 29 teaches us that anyone who received death sentence must not be redeemed for money. Any condemned person who has been banned from mankind shall not be redeemed. He shall be put to death. Which means there is no bail, there is no bribe. A person cannot say, I'll give you $1 million, I'll give you $1 billion, just keep me alive. No. If the court pronounced that he deserves death penalty, he must be put to death. Verse 30, we learn about maaser, which is called tithe in English. Any tithe of the land, of the seed of the land, of the fruit of the tree, belongs to Hashem. It is holy to Hashem. So if it is maaser rishon, the first maaser, it is given to the Levites. And if it is maaser sheni, the Jew himself can bring it to Yerushalayim and eat it there, he and his family. Verse 31, if a person shall redeem some of his tithe, he shall add his fifth to it. Maaser Sheini, the second maaser that we separate, the second 10%, can be redeemed. For example, if a person says, I have so much food, God blessed me with so much grain and wine and fruits, that if I take 10%, it's going to be too much to carry to Yerushalayim. I can't. So then he's able to redeem it with money. Now the money is going to be holy. He can sell this maaser as a regular food to someone else, or store it for later, and he can carry the money to Yerushalayim and buy food over there. Verse 32 speaks about maaser behema, that every year all the animals that are born to a Jewish family in that year, you gather all of them and you choose every 10th, you lead them through a narrow opening, you count them, and every 10th you separate and you mark, and you say this is maaser behema. Any tithe of cattle or of the livestock, any that passes under the staff, the 10th one shall be holy to Hashem. You have to bring it to Beit HaMikdash as an offering. However, as we said, the way you choose it, you just let them go randomly through a narrow opening. He shall not distinguish between good and bad. Whether it's a little lamb, a big lamb, a fat or skinny, doesn't matter. Whichever one it is, we give to Hashem. And don't substitute for it. And if he does substitute for it, then it and its substitute shall be holy. It may not be redeemed. This concludes this discussion of all the commandments, and now the Torah summarizes it in the last verse. Verse 34 on page 723. These are the commandments that Hashem commanded Moshe to the children of Israel on Mount Sinai. And at the conclusion of each one of the 5 books of the Torah, some have a custom to say Chazak, Chazak, Venit Chazek. Be strong, and may we be strengthened. Thank you for joining. Have a good night. Shabbat Shalom Umevorach.